House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden will meet 1 week from today for debt ceiling and budget talks. Marking the first time since February, the two leaders discuss these issues at length. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democrat leader, continued to blast the House budget, which raises the debt ceiling, but also brings $4.8 trillion in deficit reduction. President Biden insists he will veto the measure should it hit his desk, but with the debt ceiling limit hitting possibly as soon as June 1st, will he reconsider? Joining me now to discuss all of it is Congressman Ron Estes. He serves on the House Ways and Means Committee, the House Budget Committee, and the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Kansas. Congressman Estes, good to see you today.
It's good seeing you too.
What are your thoughts on the House Republican approach to the debt ceiling?
Well, I think we did what we were supposed to do. The Republicans in the House voted to extend the debt limit for the United States government. But the issue is, it's not whether you raise the debt ceiling, but whether you address the overspending. This fiscal year, we're going to spend $1.5 trillion more than we bring in as revenue. That means 1 out of every $5 that the federal government spends is going to be borrowed. And so what we tried to do is say, let's address the debt ceiling in the short term, but let's also start to address the overspending that we've got going on. So the Limit, Save, and Grow Act was focused on not only addressing the debt ceiling as well, but also looking at how can we make some common sense reforms, make sure that we address some of the issues out there that have been spent. For example, there's money out there that was appropriated for the COVID emergency that is now ending. I mean, yes, COVID's around and people will continue to get infected, but the catastrophic aspects of it are over. So why do we have that $50-60 billion that's out there unspent? So let's rein that back in. Let's look at things like what do we do with work requirements for welfare benefits that go out to individuals? Americans are a very charitable people. We like to protect people that need a hand up. But let's focus on, if you're able-bodied and you don't have children, you should also commit to work for 20 hours a week to help make sure that you earn those benefits that you're getting while you're getting that hand up.
As I mentioned, the House budget contains $4.8 trillion in deficit reduction. What you described there, for many people, would seem reasonable, but President Biden and the Democrats, they have a different perspective on that. He referred to what's being called from the House as the Limit, Save, and Grow Act. He talked about it as a form of hostage taking. Let's play clip 3.
America is not a deadbeat nation. We have never, ever failed to meet the debt. And as a result, one of the most respected nations of the world. We pay our bills, and we should do so without reckless hostage-taking from some of the mega Republicans in Congress.
Congressman Estes, do you have any sense of what he's referring to when he talks about hostage-taking from Republicans?
I don't know how what term he's using to or what justification he's using to talk about that. I mean, we're talking about some common sense things that help address the issues that we have out there. The debt occurs because you spend more money than what comes in as revenue. And it's been 90 days today since President Biden met with Speaker McCarthy, and President hasn't done anything since then. We focused on passing a bill last week to make sure that we got the process started. We were trying to do our work in the House, and now it's up to President Biden and Senator Schumer to actually focus on stepping up and making sure that we do protect Social Security payments to American citizens, that we do protect paychecks to our servicemen and women. And they've got a job to do now that we've done our work in the House.
Of course, that House budget is going to the Senate for consideration. Senator Patty Murray, who's one of the Democrats in the Senate that will be considering this, in discussing the proposal, she was more specific than President Biden was there. Let's play clip 8.
The MAGA Republicans would pull cops off our streets, drive a wrecking ball through our border security, making it easier for deadly fentanyl to flood our streets.
Congressman Estes, she says there that the House budget is going to drive a wrecking ball through border security and therefore allow fentanyl into the country. Where's that coming from?
Well, what we proposed in there was that we use for fiscal year 24 the same spending levels that we had in fiscal year 22. So that's just 18 months ago at the spending rate that we had at the federal government. If that's a wrecking ball, I don't know what she's thinking about happened 18 months ago, because that's the level that we wanted to spend at for 2024 moving forward, so that we actually do start to at least bend the curve and actually get some of this overspending in control.
Now, a game of chicken seems to be forming between House Republicans and the White House and Democrats in the Senate. We know that House Republicans negotiated hard with Speaker McCarthy during the Speaker election. Do you expect that same kind of conviction in the Republican caucus, generally out of the House, when it comes to these negotiations over the debt limit?
I think it's very important for us as a conference that we've talked about a lot of issues on the Republicans in the House, and we've talked about what we need to do to help make address the problems that are going forward. And as I said earlier, we're borrowing $1 out of $5 that we spend at the federal government. So we've got to address the overspending. And that was what we were trying to push in. And there's a strong commitment amongst the Republicans that we need to make sure that we do more. I don't expect us to solve this in 1 year. I mean, it's been multiple years that have been built up to get our debt limit to the $31 trillion that it's at right now. But at least we're starting the process so that over the next year, we'll be in better shape and be able to focus on what do we do going forward for the next 10 years.
Congressman, you mentioned there that $1 in $5 that we spend as a country is borrowed. Now, of course, analogies between household budgets and the federal government's budget are imperfect. But we can imagine that if on our family budget, 20% of what we spent in a month was put on a credit card, that couldn't last very long before it created a crisis. That seems intuitive. That seems to be a message that the American people would understand. But do you have a sense of how the American public are feeling about this particular debt limit debate? Do they want to see cuts, or do we all just want as much as we can get from the government?
Yeah, I think the issue gets muddied up because of the misinformation that comes out of the Democrats, particularly in the Senate and President Biden. I mean, the focus, your analogy is right. I mean, we can't go pay off one credit card with another credit card. That's just not sustainable over time. So we've got to make and to do the common sense decisions around what it is we're going to spend and make sure that we get our spending in line with the revenue that comes in, so that we can pay our debts and we can make sure that we're not the debtor nation that President Biden referred to in his comments.
Congressman, let's put this in context. Let's look down the road a bit. If the White House gets their way, if they can continue to raise the debt ceiling and actually avoid even future debates where we just have unlimited borrowing power and Congress approves that into infinity and beyond, what does that look like in the future when it's not $1 in $5 that is being borrowed that we spend, it's $1 in $3 that's being borrowed that we spend? What does that mean for the country long term if we continue down this economic path?
It really is not sustainable. I mean, this year we're spending $1.5 trillion more than what was coming in as revenue. President Biden proposed in his budget the next year to spend $1.8 trillion more. It doesn't look at all in terms of cutting some of that spending and that excess. We just can't continue down this route of mortgaging our kids' and grandkids' future just to be able to spend money today for the things that we want. We've got to focus on this. It's our responsibility as elected leaders that we go out and we address the right and appropriate and common sense decisions around what do we do to spend at the federal level, what kind of issues we want to address, what kind of revenue we want to make sure that we can obtain from a growing economy. The more the federal government borrows means there's less to invest in businesses. That means there's fewer jobs, fewer opportunities for the future. So we've got to address this now. We've got to focus on how do we make this better.
As I mentioned at the top of the program, President Biden has now invited congressional leadership to discuss this. Previously, he'd mentioned that he didn't intend to have those kind of conversations. Do you see this as a sign of progress, that all the four corners of Congress and the White House are going to get together and reach an agreement that everyone is happy with?
Well, It is a sign of progress. I mean, at least the president's now doing something. You know, it's been 90 days since he met with Speaker McCarthy and said at that point in time, we'll meet again. It's been 90 days, and now he's scheduling a meeting for next week. So hopefully that leads to a resolution. I mean, the president's got to do some work now. The Senate's got to do some work. We've addressed it on the House side, and we've got to sit down and focus to come up with a common sense solution that works for the American people.
Now, Congressman Estes, I want to change topics with you in the last here. Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre claimed that illegal immigration was down 90% in the Biden administration. Let's go ahead and play clip 4, and then I want to give you a chance to respond.
We actually deal with the immigration system in a humane way, in a way that is that actually deals with what we're seeing at the border, and that's why you've seen the parolee program be so successful. It has when it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%, and that's because of the actions that this president has taken.
Congressman Estes, your reaction to that?
That's just not true. I mean, the administration needs to stop lying to the American people about what's going on with the border. You know, when President Biden came into office in January of 2021, there were 78,000 people that crossed the border. And that was up from the last few years when President Trump was in office. This past March, under President Biden, there was 191,000 people that came across the border illegally. Now, what she tried to walk back today was, well, she meant 4 different countries had fewer people come across the border. But the truth of the matter is there's more terrorists that come across the border. There's more gang members that are coming across the border. There's more fentanyl coming across the border. All of this under President Biden's watch. And they're not telling the truth to the American people about how they're failing to protect our country.
Congressman Ron Estes, we will talk about this again. These are important stories that are not going away soon, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.